Thanks for tuning in to the Urban Scope podcast. I'm back with more hip hop news. And as if you've seen lately, Lil Wayne's tweets, which said a lot, and he's been more vocal about things he's been going through in the industry, especially the lack of treatment he's been getting, especially for the amount of contributions that he's contributed to hip hop and everything he's done for the culture. Now, lately, it's been a little dark for him as far as treatment, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the tweet said it's truly a humbling experience when events like Coachella and the Grammys come around like clockwork. I'm uninvited and uninvolved. I appreciate my position or space I hold in your heart and mind, if so, because you're the humbling experience that's timeless. And for that, I thank you. I ain't stuff without you. Just to kind of make it PG. So he's basically saying that every time, well, between Coachella, which is just occurring these past couple of weeks, and then the Grammys that happened in February, he said he was invited and then uninvited. So that got me to thinking, is Lil Wayne telling us that he is blackballed from the industry? Because it's been a rough past few years for him, when he felt he was snubbed from the Super Bowl in favor of Kendrick Lamar. Um, the Kendrick Lamar perceived disc on the intro of his GNX album when he talked about, I guess, my hard work offended Lil Wayne. So he's had that. The reception, or how the Carter Six was received, that was a huge issue. I didn't think it was a good album, but I think he has built enough equity within the culture to be able to have a bad project or two, because most artists do have a bad project or two, or at least a couple of songs that you would say in an album that really disrupted the album. And I think the Carter Six did that. So, I mean, he does have to be accountable in that. I think the Carter Six was underwhelming. And I'll talk about the reasons for that in a little while. And then also his alleged fallout with Drake, amongst others, over the past few years that seemed a little different. So it's been a lot for Lil Wayne lately, which is sad to see because, like I talked about before, he's put out a lot of great projects, gave us a lot of great music, whether it was from individual standpoint from his solo career or from a group standpoint with Young Money, with Cash Money, the features and collabs he's done in his career. He's given us a lot of great music. So he's built enough equity to put out a bad project or two. But it seems like there's someone behind the show pulling strings of, trying to blackball him from the industry, from making appearances, from being seen favorable in most lights, even though us, the hip hop fans, we always appreciate Lil Wayne. It's just people are creating a narrative, and we're not sure who that person is or people are, but it most likely is coming from another hip hop artist that most people have been pointing the finger towards. But it got me to thinking, what has Lil Wayne done wrong to the industry? Because he's always been seen in favorable light. He's always done great things. He's always had a great reputation for the most part. But now it seems like the walls are kind of crashing down, and that he's seen as a negative aspect, or he's seen as some kind of, you know, boogeyman or some kind of bad guy for some reason. And he hasn't done much for that. But I think the treatment he's been receiving, um, is a part of the Batman or the Dark Knight motto. And they said, live long enough to become the villain, because he's been in the hip hop game since the late 90s, probably, yeah, somewhere around the late 90s, when he was about 13 or 14 years old, when he was with Cash Money, all the way up until now. So he's had a good reputation all the way until now. But for some reason, he, so to speak, lived long enough to become the villain. And I think that's what it's becoming, because with all the contributions that he had from Cash Money, with Young Money, him creating his own label and giving us Drake and Nicki Minaj and all these great performers like, Tyga, working with Tyga and all these other guys, that you thought he would be good for hip hop, you know, for at least hip hop perpetuity. But for some reason, most hip hop artists never get that luxury. I would say maybe a Nas was one of the few that actually were able to do that, and maybe a Common. But for most artists, they always have a period where they're painted in the bad light, no matter which the artist is. The biggest artist that you can name had some rough patch. Whether they recovered or not, they had the patches. And Lil Wayne is but his seemed very different because it came out of left field. There wasn't any scandal, there wasn't any situation that put him in that situation. So it seems like there is someone with a vendetta. And and I talked about how before with the Carter Six when I did the review is he doesn't have the same team anymore. So there's no Birdman and Slim, kind of producing and navigating. He has little, he has Manny Fresh in a way, but not exclusively like he used to or more. And then he doesn't have Cortez Bryant, who was his manager behind the scenes during the whole Carter series, the original, 1, 2, and 3, I believe. He's not around anymore. So he doesn't have the same team. He's not working with the same producers, even though he demands a top-notch producer like a Pharrell, like a Swiss Beats, all of these different producers that he worked with in the past, even a Bangladesh that he had back in the past. He doesn't have those anymore. So is more difficult to do so because I talked about the importance of the producer rapper combo because that's very essential in hip hop because they put them in the right spots. It's kind of like a point guard. That producer is the point guard essentially, and he doesn't have a point guard right now. He's just trying to shoot shots, but he's getting double team, he's getting triple team, he's trying to pass out of it, he's turning the ball over. So it's very difficult for him to get anything off right now. So, but I think bigger than that is one of the laws of the 48 laws of power says never outshine the master. And Lil Wayne and Drake, who both are young money artists, and I want to say Nicki Minaj to some degree is fault to this as well, is never outshine the master. Now, earlier in Lil Wayne's run, around Carter 2, Carter 3, he started to gain attention from Jay Z. And Jay Z started to say, hey, you next up. Let's see what you do with it. He said the same thing for Drake. But then once these guys started saying things like, I'm the best rapper alive, I'm the best rapper out, I'm the best rapper ever, things like that. Now you get Jay Z's attention because we all know Jay Z is the only child. He has that type of mentality that I want to be the best and I will, whatever I have to do to keep people, from seeing you, from looking like you're not the best, I'm going to do that. So I believe to some degree these guys have drew ire from Jay Z, and not only drew ire from Jay Z, but they forced his hand to make him do things behind the scenes, like make producers stop rapping with him, make rappers start collabing with them. They're not getting the same type of production anymore. They're not getting the same kind of management. They're not getting the same type of anything. And these narratives are created to essentially defame their characters because you have a guy like Kendrick Lamar who had a perceived beef with Drake for decades, well, for a decade or so, and now all of a sudden he goes full throttle at Drake. And then you have a guy like Lil Wayne has Kendrick Lamar, a guy who looked up to him, beefing with him now. And all of a sudden, Jay Z gives Kendrick the Super Bowl halftime show. He has a number one album. He has all these Grammys. He has I believe it's Chanel sponsorship. He has all these things coming in as a result of these things. Not to say Jay-Z has that much power to do these things, but somebody behind the scene has it out for him. And the only thing that people contributed to it is the beef with Jay-Z or some kind of tension with Jay-Z. Because Lil Wayne and Jay-Z has lines going at Jay-Z subliminally, not ever naming him. So a lot of people feel that. So now these guys are working on an island by themselves and they're behind the eight ball, essentially. But you can't stop their fame and what their catalogs already are because they still stream pretty high. They still are seen high in hip hop lights of people that's not close to the game. So we still support the music because we don't have that vendetta or want to be a part of that. But it seems like in the bigger circles, they are trying to do that because with with the things that Lil Wayne has done for hip hop, especially, from a global and a diversity standpoint, he's one of the few artists, him and Drake and Snoop Dogg and Kanye are one of the few artists that cross over to multiple ethnicities and multiple cultures and things like that. So they're able to do that and put hip hop on a stage or a pedestal that we usually didn't see hip hop on, even with the older acts, like a Snoop and Jay Z and Dr. Dre and those guys. What they were able to do, they were able to take it to the next level. So Lil Wayne has done a lot, and it's sad to see that he's being blackballed, and it must be pretty bad for him to speak on it because usually he didn't speak on a lot, but over these last couple of years, he's been able to do that. So tell me what your thoughts about Lil Wayne being blackballed. Until next time, I see you next time.